Yo, I got some news, everybody. The next DLC for AU4 has been officially announced. It's called Dynasties of the East, and it's planning to launch on November 4th this year. It contains 4 new variant civs, no new civs. The 4 new variants are called Macedonian Dynasty, Sengoku Daimyo, Tughlaq Dynasty, and Golden Horde. I actually got to play a brief preview of this at Gamescom today, where I go to with 3 of my friends most years. I also didn't expect to play AOE4 here, so I wasn't very well prepared for any of this. The information ahead of time that Microsoft gave out was only that Age of Empires would be playable, as well as Age of Mythology Retold, which I thought meant Age of Empires mobile, but not AOE4. And when I got there were actually 2 stands there, for one for Age of Mythology and one for the mobile version, but also a third one for AOE4, which I was real happy to see, which interestingly enough was the only one with a actually long line on it, by the way. And since I'm bad at YouTube, I didn't get any footage of the stands or anything like that. Before we get into it, this was the pre-beta demo version of the DLC that they kind of just released to play at Gamescom, but it's far from the finished product we're about to see in November. So if you're seeing glitches or things that seem unfinished or overpowered or underpowered, don't take anything too seriously. The development of the main game, of course, continues and will continue until November 4th. So today I got to play a version of the game which will probably be at least a month old by this point, maybe even older than that, and will continue to be developed until November 4th. So lots of bug fixing. It is not finished yet, because in the end I did some poking around in stuff that probably wasn't meant to be center stage in this presentation, that was in it anyway, so I just kind of looked at it and tried to get as much information on video as possible. Also, if you're at Gamescom today or the following days, it's still going till Sunday, please fill in the gaps, leave comments if you've been and checked everything out. There's lots of stuff I missed, just let's pool the knowledge if possible. In the preview, only 2 of the 4 new civs were available, but I kind of got some info on all of the civs, and we're just going to go through them right now. I'm going to start out with the new game mode, the Crucible. Some of that information has been on the stream, but I'm going to briefly summarize it here anyway. They call the game mode a roguelike RTS, so it's basically, there's a number of different maps you can play this mode on. I think it kind of changes what civ is actually attacking you in the game mode. In the game I played, all the attackers were from the new Sengoku Dynasty, so Japan with some new units mixed in. The stream showed a screen of something that looked like the attackers would be Golden Horde, as well as one where the attacks are probably from the Macedonian Dynasty. So maybe there's other maps there. I can only talk about this one, where you spawn with a town center and a wonder, and you have to defend that wonder for as long as possible. On 3 points on the map, periodically units spawn and try to destroy the wonder. There's a bunch of different difficulty settings, which are going to be relevant later, but as you play, you also unlock these bonuses that periodically just pop up. They are shown on the screen and explained that there's over 50 different ones of these. You only get these for the game that you're playing. There seems to be a rarity system attached to these, where blue ones are common, there's more rare ones that are purple, and also saw some red ones that have an upside and a downside. One I got was plus 5% damage for each Aja, but minus 5% HP for the units. So it's a trade-off, a lot of damage, but squishier units. Other things I saw was plus 20% damage on cavalry, but minus 2 armor on cav units. That kind of stuff. I didn't see any golden ones. This is speculation, but most rarity systems have blue, purple, and gold as the super unique ones, which is common, rare, and unique, right? So I wouldn't be shocked if there were golden ones also. The blue ones were pretty generic, good ones, but, not mind-blowing ones. Some of the purple ones were interesting. Some active abilities in there also. Every about 2 minutes, you could activate this lightning storm that would come down and kill 5 units pretty much instantly in a certain area. Another purple one had your melee units instantly heal to full when they kill an enemy, which was pretty good, yeah, but those are the rare ones. The blue ones were more regenerate some HP, slight increase in range, nothing too fancy. As you play this game mode, you will eventually die, and when you die, you get a bunch of points in the end for however long you lasted. There's a tiered system where 25 minutes is the benchmark for hitting bronze, then comes 35 minutes is silver, 45 is gold, and so forth, which probably increases the amount of points you get. Those points you can spend on permanent bonuses outside of the game, and I didn't know about these permanent buffs that you can achieve. They seem pretty strong, but you're supposed to rinse and repeat, right? You play the game, you try to last as long as you can, get points, score some bonuses, go in on your second time playing, presumably last a longer time, eventually increase the difficulty and try to last longer in the higher difficulties, unlock more bonuses, and get stronger over time. I think this is probably a great mode for people who play against AI, which is not insignificant chunk of the community. I'm probably gonna try this when the DLC releases, but after playing ranked a bunch. The enemies that spawn start out very generic and easy to beat, but get up like first it's Dark Age units, then Feudal Age units, then Castle Age units. It gets harder and harder, of course, and you want to keep up with that. At the same time, your scout is running around the map, and there's a bunch of apparently randomly generated optional objectives around the map that are different from each time that you play. Sometimes you just find like 100 free gold or 100 free food somewhere on the map. Other things are like camps with enemies that are guarding a couple of free sheep or a relic. There's also more special ones which look like an arena where fight the champion and get presumably pretty big bonus. Other ones looked like a bunch of free resources. That's one my scout ran into. And then suddenly a bunch of shinobi blink out and try to kill your scout who's collecting the free resources. Stuff like that. The civ I picked during my run of the Crucible, I picked the Tughlaq Dynasty, which is the new Delhi variant. So the town center spawns in with a couple of workers, and interesting enough, one worker elephant done already, which you can walk over right away to the gold mine and just start putting villages there. That worker elephant is a universal drop-off, which gives you like bonus resources for resources that are dropped off there. The worker elephants cost 25 food and 50 wood, and they can be built at the town center. Interestingly enough though, they don't queue up like villagers. You just click on them and they instantly spawn, and there's a maximum of 15 of these. The pink box on the bottom is a glitched graphic that indicates the number of elephants you have right now. What hasn't been mentioned yet, but actually results of this, the Tughlaq Dynasty does not have mining camp, mill, or lumber camp. There are no normal drop-off buildings. There are only these worker elephants. They replace every drop-off building except for like town centers, and they increase the drop-off of every resource. Something else counterintuitive about the worker elephant is that with a normal civ, you would place a mill and then put a ring of 8 farms around that mill, right? That normal farm part that we see. Here you don't have a mill to put farms around, so you would simply place down like 9 farms and then put a worker elephant on top of the middle farm, which is actually like more efficient in terms of space, and also the middle farm has a very short drop-off distance, which I don't know, was kind of surprising to me when I first played it, built some farms, and then you just, wait, where do I put them? And then I just put a worker elephant on top of it. And oh, yeah, now it makes sense, which is, I don't know, pretty cool. You research everything that the other buildings would have had inside the elephant. And interesting enough, there's only one research for increased resources. So unlike, we have the double broad axe and then, different ones for food and gold and stone. For the Tughlaq Dynasty, there's only one upgrade that is researched at the elephant that applies for all resources. So they have only one universal eco upgrade. And speaking of upgrades, the Tughlaq Dynasty at present seems to have like a baseline 20 or 30% increase on the costs of upgrades, but every upgrade only takes 5 seconds to develop. So if you forgot an upgrade and there's a fight coming up and you're, oh crap, as long as you have the resources, you can start it then, stall out 5 seconds and get it for the next fight, which is actually complete polar opposite to what Delhi is. It's pretty interesting. Something that is more similar though is all the landmarks. The landmarks, at least in name and look, are the same as Delhi as far as I can tell. I went for the Tower of Victory here, which increases the attack speed of elephants that are built in the network connected to the Tower of Victory by 15%. The other landmark is the Dome of Faith that allows you to build healers in Feudal Age, and also I think gives you the healing elephants in Feudal Age. I didn't see the ability to build a mosque in Dark Age or Feudal Age with the Tughlaq Dynasty, so that seems to be a Castle Age building if I saw that correctly. Just how a regular civ will build a monastery in Castle Age and then start building monks only then, unless you go for the Dome of Faith. Although I'm not 100% sure because I didn't play that landmark. Since I did go for the Tower of Victory, my elephants had plus 15% attack speed, which of course already applies to Feudal Age because the horsemen in the Dynasty of Tughlaq have been replaced with raider elephants. They are pretty pricey at 200 food and 40 wood. They also cost double the population, so 2 instead of 1. They count as light cav unit and also, similar to the horsemen that they replace, deal bonus damage to ranged units and siege units. I think it's 20 base damage and then 20 bonus damage to units that are ranged or siege. They got 260 HP, 2 melee armor, 3 ranged armor, so pretty buff, and they only attack though at every 2 seconds. There's no special attack for anti-buildings and there's no charge attack, so you can't run in with these and snipe a building with ease like you would with a normal war elephant attack if it could move at the same speed as the raid elephant, because the raid elephant moves at 1.6 in this version of the game, which is just also slightly slower than a knight, quite a bit slower than a horseman, but still quite a bit faster than the Honor Bugeisha, for example. Horsemen are 1.8 something, Honor Bugeisha are 1.5. These are 1.6. The Red Elephants also have an activatable ability called Niedertrampeln, which is kind of trample over, I think in English, which basically causes them, I think, to like put their front feet in the air and trample on the ground, dealing 4 damage every half second to units around them. I didn't really get to play around with it as much, so I can't really tell you how good or bad this ability is. I kind of forgot a lot about it for a lot of this, so I don't know. Could be fun to just trample a bunch of stacked up villagers maybe, but I don't know if it's good. We'll have to see in a proper game. A brief mention here as we were watching this. I kind of fucked up playing this. I made a big mistake, but only became clear to me in retrospect. I wanted to test how hard this mode gets because I didn't know about the permanent bonuses that you get in the background. So I thought I just set it to the highest difficulty and I could probably do it because it didn't look that hard when other people were playing it. As I was in line, I was watching other people and it didn't look that hard. And it turns out it's on the highest difficulties, it actually probably gets exponentially harder because you get these permanent bonuses, right? And you're supposed to try several times. And some of these permanent bonuses seemed pretty freaking strong, so I kind of went in there without any permanent bonuses, and yeah, the problem that resulted from that is like I survived almost the entire time that we were supposed to. Like the demo was supposed to end after 25 minutes. Most people made it the entire 25 minutes. I only lasted for about 24, but the point is I was stuck in feudal for most of the game. In fact, I only went into like Castle Age at the last 30 seconds, so I don't know much more about the Tughlaq Dynasty that isn't in feudal age, which sucks because I thought at the time that the governor mechanic would only show up in Castle Age, so I didn't even try to go for it to try build forts and get governors, so I just kind of missed out on this aspect of the Tughlaq Dynasty entirely. Set the difficulty too high, so why didn't I just set it to the easiest and fucked around in Imperial Age for forever? I don't know, I'm an idiot. I fucked that part up, but yeah, I wasn't gonna get in line and make my friend, wait another 90 minutes to film me again for 30 minutes, so that was a no-go. He already donated 2 hours of his Gamescom time to me, and we were about to leave already anyway. I told him several times while in line, and the line wasn't moving, and I was like, come on dude, just go, leave me here, you just use the time you have. And he was like, no, I'm staying, which I don't know, super grateful for, because without that I would have nothing. A better idea I had though was while playing I simply went and checked out tech trees available in the menu, so I just kind of went for it, and we're just gonna have a brief intermission here as I scroll through the tech tree and try to explain what everything says. I'm not gonna translate every bit of it, I'm just gonna summarize everything. It's sadly in German, I couldn't change the setting. On the left side of the screen we see a bit of lore followed by everything I've already explained about the worker elephants. Also a brief explanation that the research is nearly instantaneous. Then there's a section on the legendary forts, which are available in feudal age and are defensive building that has an increasing amount of HP and allows you to pick a governor. They cost 350 stone, but that cost can be reduced to 280 by the compound of the defender. Then there's a brief section on choosing one of 6 possible governors in the Tughlaq Dynasty. The strength of the governor increases with every upgrade in the Tughlaq fort. That's the part that's actually pretty vague here, because I don't know, if I just used it in game once I could tell you so much more about it, but I don't know, has someone else been to Gamescom maybe and can fill in on this? Surely I wasn't the only one there, so maybe someone else can fill the gaps here. This section explains that they gather berries 30% faster and can carry slightly more berries, so this seems to be the berry bonus that other Muslim civs get, but for this civ where they can't get the increased berry count on the bushes because they don't build a mill. The section below that one explains that they can build walls with military units the same way Delhi can. Their fishing boats can attack, same Delhi can. Their special units are the Red Elephant, which we saw, then also the Healer Elephant, which has 2 imams on the back and can heal, and also the War Elephant, which is the same as Delhi. Below that is the Ballista Elephant, which I sadly didn't get to try. I looked over the landmarks on this tech tree. They are all named the same as the ones of Delhi, although they have all different functionalities than what I could tell from Delhi. We already spoke about the ones in feudal, so here's Castle Age. The compound of the defender is first. It reduces the stone costs of all buildings by 20% and allows for an additional upgrade for the governors. The House of Learning also doesn't do anything by itself, but has a bunch of unique upgrades. Its first upgrade costs 90 food and 225 gold. It allows elephants to be healed 2 HP every 2 seconds when they're out of combat. The next upgrade is called Collateral Damage, and it causes 90 food and 225 gold. The additional damage for Elephant increases by 30%. I'm not entirely sure what that means. And finally, we have Mammoths for 60 food and 150 gold. Elephants move, I think, 10% faster. I can't quite read that correctly. The resolution is slightly too low. We also found out that the Ballista Elephant is a Castlite unit that can be upgraded to Elite and is built in the Siege Workshop actually, so not in the stable or the archery range. It costs 300 food and 350 gold. I also checked out the Hisa Academy, which seems to be a quote-unquote normal university. Just to give you an idea, the upgrade cost for Elite Army Tactics is 600 food and 1.2k gold, so a 20% increase in cost. And keep in mind, it can also be done in just 5 seconds after finishing. So if you're going into Imp Rich, you can get a bunch of upgrades right away with this landmark. The Academy also has a passive bonus where it generates 50 food and 50 gold every minute for each active governor, I think is what that says. And the final landmark, of course, is the Sultan's Palace, which normally produces these elephants, which are also listed under this landmark, so I'm not quite sure if it can also build these. The tooltip for this one on the tech tree was completely broken, so it doesn't even make sense to translate it, so I'm just gonna nod. And I'm afraid that's basically all I can tell you on the Tughlaq Dynasty. I also watched some other people play the Macedonian Dynasty, so I can kind of like ramble on about that, but that's much more secondhand knowledge. I don't have any footage of it, it's just me looking over the shoulder of other people playing and then telling you what I saw basically. It's even more vague than everything else I just told you, so again, take it with a grain of salt. Some of the broader strokes for the Macedonian Dynasty have been explained on stream, right? The olive oil has been replaced with silver, and it also shows in the UI up as silver, where the olive oil used to be for the Byzantines. There are no more aqueducts that boost the economy or have the buildings centered around them. It's just completely absent from the base. There were also no olive groves to be built, but just, I think, regular fields being built. The Varangian Arsenal is a feudal age building that replaces the blacksmith, and it had all new technologies in it, so none of the possible upgrades there looked anything like you would see in the blacksmith. There were also way more upgrades. The only text for the upgrades I could read there was one that had a little horseshoe on it that said increased damage for all calf units, and some of the symbols to the left of that looked like a little arrow as well as like a sword. So probably the upgrades are split up by like melee units, ranged units, and cavalry units. The icons weren't green but silver, which ties back to the silver mechanic, I think, because this is where we're supposed to spend our silver. As far as I could tell, all the landmarks had been the same as for the Byzantines in terms of visuals and name, but they all had new functionalities. Of course, the Grand Winery can't be producing additional olive oil since there is no more olive oil, but I don't know what it does. It had some text about an economic bonus on it, but I couldn't make out what it was. But it was still a food drop-off site and a monastery just like it is now. The Imperial Hippodrome actually still functions as a stable, similarly to how it does now, but it no longer has the bonus that can be activated on it. Instead, there was a periodic message popping up on the screen saying like the master has arrived or returned, probably like the stable master or something like that. It seemed to be this unit that we already saw on some of the streams that they released, right? It was looking like a horseman for Byzantines, but has like a golden symbol on top of it that looks very similar to that of the Yoroshiro for Japan, at least for now. Again, that could be placeholder graphic, which may well be changed by the time the DLC drops. That unit, I don't know, I think someone at one point had more than one of that, so maybe it just periodically spawns a beefed up version of a horseman. I generally can't tell you what it does. For H3, the cistern still exists, but it is the only cistern, as far as I can tell, that the Macedonians can build. I don't know what it does exactly. The other one I could look at more closely, the Golden Horde Tower, it's called. For Byzantines, it will regularly spawn mercenary units that they've unlocked. For Macedonians, however, it seemed to be more of a defensive landmark rather than one that only produces units. It functions very similar to Keep, essentially. There were 15 spots in there for units to hop into and shoot out of it. It also had the like regular ranged indicator that you would see on a keep. Unlike for Byzantines, it wouldn't produce mercenaries regularly, but would instead, I think, only spit out crossbows regularly. How exactly that functions, I can't tell you. I just know that there were like a bunch of free crossbows accumulating around the landmark. Sadly, I don't know anything about the Age 4 landmarks. As was suggested by the content we already saw both on the stream from the Gamescom, but also in the pre-release stuff, the barracks has been replaced by the Varangian Stronghold. Is of course then available in Dark Age. I couldn't tell any functional difference from the barracks, but the other building that was available in Dark Age was the Varangian War Camp. It had a very similar looking UI to that of the military school from Ottomans, where basically you have a list of like all the units that are available to them in terms of like non-siege military units, and you could toggle these on and off, which makes me think that like as you lose your units in battle, every once in a while the war camp will spit out one of the units that you have set like to be toggled to, right? So if you set it to archers, for example, you lose a bunch of units, then the war camp spits out an archer, and if you have it set to like Varangian Guard, it will spit out a Varangian Guard and so forth. Interestingly enough, this didn't seem to be locked to any age, so in Dark Age all the toggles were already available, even to like Castle Age only units, which could be like super fucking powerful if you have a very long spearman versus spearman battle in Dark Age, because then you would have knights or crossbows from Castle Age suddenly pop into that Dark Age versus Dark Age battle, which would be way beefed up then. I don't know how many units have to die before you get even one free unit. On the whole, the Macedonians seemed relatively easy to play. They're also designed to be a 1-star civ, but don't take this list that I just gave you to be complete. Just from the stream, we can tell there's a ton of mechanics in there that I couldn't make out. There were activatable abilities on the units that I couldn't see, so I don't know what those do. Oh, also the thing I forgot, the infantry units seem to be able to place these rune stones from the same menu that you would build a ram. They only take a few seconds to build and they buff all the units around them. It wasn't a healing buff, I can rule that part out, but it seemed to be a damage increase. No idea by how much though. They couldn't be moved and they didn't seem to be on a timer, so maybe they last indefinitely and can be destroyed by the opponent. I didn't see either of those things happening. The runestones just stuck around. I don't know if they're infinite, probably not. That would be really strong and you would just have a map plastered in runestones in the long run, so I don't know how this mechanic works exactly, but yeah, again, don't take this to be a complete list. We know there's more to the Macedonians than what I've mentioned here, so let's move on to the Sengoku Dynasty. This civ was not playable at the Gamescom event at all, but the opponents during the Crucible were all units from the Sengoku Daimyo, so you can like figure out a bunch of stuff through that. The most info I got though was just from scrolling through the tech tree towards the very end. I could only go over this very hastily because the people running this like event thing were kind of surprised that I was still playing, because everybody else had already finished and I was still going over everything in the tech tree, trying to capture as much of the info as I could. We're gonna start by going down the left hand side. It starts out by giving some of the historical background, then explains that there are daimyo estates which can be dedicated to one of 3 clans. The Hoyo clan increases the potential for melee infantry. The Oda clan increases the abilities of ranged infantry. And the Takeda clan increases the abilities of cavalry units. It also says that the daimyo estate has an influence on the production rate of military buildings. Then there's the section called Yatai and Matsuri. The Matsuri is an early market that can spawn the Yatai, which is this card thing that we've seen in like some of the stuff that's been released. Yatai is a special unit that gathers food from nearby food sources without using them up. Once it has collected enough food, it sends back home a trader to the Matsuri, and when that trader arrives, that increases the gathering rate of nearby villagers. We will later see that this is called an early market because it can be built in Dark Age. Below this we have the info that the farmhouse and the forge work the same way they do for Japan, as well as the information that keeps can only be built in Imperial Age, again same as Japan. Then we have the section for specialty units, where first up we have the Yatai, the card that we mentioned that gathers food. Their next one is actually really interesting. It's called the Yari Cavalry, fast cavalry effective at raiding and flanking, and it counters ranged unit. It deals additional damage to cavalry units. So it's an anti-cavalry cav unit. I haven't seen this anywhere, so I don't know what it looks like or what the stats are. Below that we have the Daimyo, which is a heavy melee cavalry unit that is their equivalent of the Bannerman. I think you can get 3 different ones of these that all increase the attack speed based on which clan you are dedicating your estates to. So it increases the attack speed of melee units, ranged units, or cavalry. It says you are limited to 1 Daimyo estate, which might mean you're limited limited to one per daimyo estate, or means you are limited to one daimyo estate. I'm not sure if this is translated correctly. Below that we have the Yumi Ashigaru, which seems to be the same as for Japan. And below that the Iko-Iki monk, which is a warrior monk that can heal nearby units by attacking. It does not have a regular healing ability. The final two are the Kanabo Samurai, which is a tough infantry unit that has additional damage based on the maximum HP of the enemy, as well as the early Uzotsu, which seems to be just like the Uzotsu but available in Castle Age. Something that should be mentioned here that is not on this list is the Mounted Samurai. There seems to be some specialty upgrades for Mounted Samurai, so also the Mounted Samurai is a specialty unit of the Sengoku Dynasty, but it is not on this list, so I don't know what other units do carry over from Japan that are not in this list right now. There have to be some, because we know that the regular samurai as well as the mounted samurai are in the Sengoku Dynasty, but are not in this list, so this list is not complete. It's possible that they have crossbows instead of Onamusha, but those would look kinda out of place if you ask me. It's also possible that they have neither the Onamusha nor the crossbows, because they do have those samurai that deal damage based on percentage of health, which might just be their replacement for crossbows. I don't think so, but theoretically possible. Also unmentioned are Onabugeisha, which were not shown in the barracks that I did click on, so those seem to be Japan exclusive, not part of the Sengoku Dynasty. But again, kind of speculation. Speaking of the Kanabo Samurai, that unit actually showed up as an enemy during the Crucible, so I could click on it and see the Feudal Age version of that unit. It exists from the Feudal Age onward. Here are the stats. It's pretty beefy at 185 HP, which is more than a Castle Age man-at-arms. It might have changed stats because it's an enemy in this battle. I'm not sure entirely. It's very interesting that it only deals 2 melee damage, and on top of that takes 8% of the maximum HP of the enemy. So really almost no baseline damage and a lot of percentage damage. So every enemy should die within like 12 or 13 attacks from this unit, regardless of whether or not it's a villager or an elephant, if the percentage damage mechanic works as I think it does. It's also very slow at 1.12 movement speed and does not have a ton of armor actually, so it's probably the kind of unit you're gonna want to kite, because if those things start to hit, man, it's gonna hurt. Something else I did while going over the tech tree was looking at every landmark. Here we are looking at the Koka Township, which is not the same as it is for Japan. In fact, half of the landmarks for the Sengoku Dynasty have been replaced with novel landmarks. The other half are reworked landmarks from Japan. This is the Koka Township that has been reworked. It no longer just builds shinobi. Instead, it has the ability to reveal a target area and can create a shinobi ambush near buildings or stealth forests. I have no idea what that looks like specifically. The new one is called Ryokan. It increases the pop cap by +60 and units near it get a healing bonus. It says the healing bonus lasts 3 minutes and causes units to heal for 3 every 5 seconds. This is probably some sort of mistranslation. It also reveals the location of all the deer and boar on the map. So this is not a baseline ability of the Civ as I previously thought actually, but it only shows up when you get this landmark. Here's the Temple of Equality, which functions as a Buddhist temple, which has unique upgrades for the Iko-Iki monks and reduces the cost of Iko-Iki monks by 50%. We also see 2 upgrades here, the icons of which are glitched because the German name is too long, so the squares kind of stretch way far to the right. They're just upgrades to the Iko-Iki monks. The new Castle Age landmark is called the Sake Brewery, and it spreads Tokokoji mats around itself so that villagers can work on this to gather gold. It sounds like a Cura storehouse that creates special fields that create gold instead of food. At this point I was reminded that my time was up and that I should start finishing up, so I just sped up the info gathering. Here's the first Imperial Age upgrade. It's called the Sword Hunt statue. It's probably what we saw in the released material already. It increases the Daimyo aura bonus attack speed by +30%, and Daimyo estates of level 3 generate militia 50% faster. Militia haven't been mentioned anywhere, but they did pop up as one of the enemies that attacked me during the Crucible. They seem to be like a kind of generic spearmen that doesn't deal any bonus damage to horses. I don't know, a kind of smaller version of a man-at-arms maybe is a better description. It's kind of like how there's French knights, but then there's also chevaliers, like there's man-at-arms, and then there's also militia, like a very small version of that. I don't think they take bonus damage from anything or dealt bonus damage to much of anything. Not a huge unit, more like fluff you can throw away. The final landmark is the Castle of the Crow, which I did not mouse over, but I would assume has some sort of changed functionality. I just don't know what it is. Another key part that I skipped earlier we can look at now are the Daimyo manors themselves. First up is the Hoyo Daimyo manor. It has the same symbol as some of the flags in the stuff that we've seen in the previews. It increases the pop cap by 10 and allows you to train the Daimyo. It also increases your support level for the Hojo clan by 1 in order to get bonuses for melee infantry units. The health of the Daimyo estate increases by 200 and the costs double stone and wood wise. So I assume you can like build any number of these and just get increasing bonuses. They just get exponentially more expensive. Here we see the cost of the Daimyo. It says that it has an aura which increases the attack speed of military units nearby. It's effective against melee units, and it is limited to 1 per Daimyo mana. It has 3 unique upgrades. The first one increases the range of spears by +1. The second one equips your samurai with a Yumi that they can fire regularly from a distance, like in regular intervals, it says. The last one is simply called a ranged armor, and it increases the ranged armor of melee units by +2. Then the Oda clan Daimyo is doing all the same thing as the one before, except it increases your support level for the Oda clan by 1, of course, which supplies boni for ranged infantry. Yeah, the Daimyo is trained there too, and it has an upgrade that increases the bonus damage of Yumi by +1. Next up is the Tanegashima Tate, which allows the Tanegashima to use a standing shield that reads, and I'm just going to quote here, increases the range damage by 2% and decreases the siege damage by 2%. So that's definitely a typo. The third upgrade is the early Zotsu, which allows you to play an early version of the Zotsu, similar to the early Bombard in Castlelight. The next one is the Takeda clan Daimyo. I kind of forgot to mouse over the upgrades there, but one is the Odachi for Mounted Samurai, which I assume is similar to the Odachi from Japan. Then there's 2 more. One says Horse Care, the other says Improved Yari. And I'm afraid that's all I got for the Sengoku Dynasty. So now let's look over the Golden Horde. First up, we have some historical backgrounds. Then it says the Golden Tent. The Golden Tent is a unique landmark of the Golden Horde. Its HP increases every time you go to the next age. The Golden Tent allows you to pick an edict, which changes the aura or influence of the outposts. Below that, it said that the Khan and the Torguten can be recruited in the Golden Tent. The next section is called Hordes. The units are created in pairs of 2. And technologies can be researched that improve production. Below that it says stockyards. Create stockyards instead of fields. Apparently these create sheep where the food can be gathered and dropped off right away at the stockyard. Below that it says the reinforced outposts, which have improved HP and have an aura that is influenced by the edict. Then improved transport. Transport ships have plus 50% HP and 15% faster movement speed. Here we have Silk Road. The number of traders you have increases the amount of resources you get. At 5 it's plus 10% food. At 10 it's food and wood. And at 15 it's food, wood and gold. The next section is Obus, that are buildings that can be constructed on top of stone croppings that give you stone per minute based on the age, 70, 100, 120, 150. Then we go to the specialty units. The first one up is the Khan of the Golden Horde, a heavy cavalry unit that can fire an arrow that increases the amount of damage enemies in a certain area take, and it has an attack damage aura that depends on the time spent in combat. And the Khan's strength increases with each age up. Below that are the Torguts, which are heavy cavalry that absorb the damage that the Khan would otherwise take. Then Karash, a weak light infantry unit that improves the armor of allies nearby. There's also a section about the Mangonel that has an increased movement speed and reduced setup time and attack speed, as well as 2 sections mentioning the Mangudai and the Kashik, which do not seem changed from the Mongol versions of those units. Alright, on the right side we see what are probably basically the landmarks for the Golden Horde. First one is called Khans and Torguten. which reduces the cost of the Khan and the bodyguards by 20% and increases their health by 50. Then we got packed up buildings, which provides you with 2 packed up buildings that can create an unspecified military building. So maybe you can like choose which one you want, like 2 archery rangers or maybe barracks in a stable or something. And both of these also mention that they get you into the next age. So these are the age up, right? This also has the bonus that every age up down the road will also provide you with another packaged up building. This next one is called the Gathering of the Golden Horde, and it doesn't seem to be quite translated correctly. It says it improves the Obo horseman gathering, and it uses next to the horseman also a man-at-arms as well as a Mangudai, and it resets the cost. I don't know what cost it's referring to. Then it says that it causes an immediate gathering at the Golden Tent. For each Golden Tent and Obo, 1 horseman and 1 Mangudai gather at the Golden Tent. Next one is called the Relic Obos, which shamans can use a relic to create an oboe, which does not count towards the limit of oboes and improves the stone gathering of oboes by 20%. The next one is called Stone Army, which allows the Golden Tent to create unique units at a reduced stone cost. And the final landmark is the Yam Trade Network, which allows the Golden Tent to create 10 gold every 10 seconds for each outpost up to a maximum of 6. Next up we see the Khan and the bodyguards again, which we already know about. There's the cost 140 and 150 stone. Then we skip one that's glitched, as well as looking at the next actual one. That's an edict, the first one I've seen here, which is called the Karash Edict. It costs 800 stone, and it says if it's active, each military building that is in the influence of an outpost gains an additional Karash unit with every military unit produced there. The Karash is that light melee infantry unit that gives an armor improving aura. The next one is called the Stockyard Edict, which causes the stockyards, in addition to the food that's being gathered there, also to create gold for the player, as long as they are in the influence of an outpost. Then I moused over the Obu, which is actually noteworthy because it says that it creates 70 stone per minute, but it also says that it creates 60 stone per minute when built atop of a depleted stone outcropping. So they seem to give you stone even after the stone has been depleted, unlike Mongols. I also took a brief look into the stable, which actually contains the Karash from earlier, as well as an early horseman, just like Mongols do. And then finally I looked at the reinforced outpost, which costs 150 wood and 50 stone, and has an upgrade in it called Glorious Attack, which I sadly did not mouse over. And yeah, I'm afraid that's all I got in terms of actual info for the game. Let me again make a call to action here. Anyone who's been to Gamescom or who's still going to Gamescom, Gamescom is still on Sunday. Maybe if you're from Cologne, you can get your hands on a ticket to Gamescom and can like still get in there, play, and do a better job gathering info than I did. Because, yeah, I'm super curious about all of this. There's been some discussion in the, call it discussion, some controversy in the community about there being only variant civs in the upcoming DLC. A lot of people were hoping for full civs, and honestly, I get that. Full civs are definitely cooler because, just everything being unique and different is cooler than just having a variant. But at the same time, of course, that makes the whole thing be way more work. It's still valid for those people to say, like, hey, I wish the game devs would pour more like time and effort towards full civ rather than creating even more variants. And even if that means having less variant civs or less civs on the whole, right? Basically saying I would rather have, one full civ that's completely new than 2 variants. And like, it's a valid opinion to have, and I can see where they're coming from. I think those people actually in the slight majority right now in the community, from what I've seen on Reddit anyway. It's kind of my personal estimate, but that alone I think is interesting because this will probably mean that the devs will put like creating a new civ up for a higher priority than they had in the past, and will hopefully for the next DLC create a full new civ if at all possible, even if that means we have like one less variant or something like that. It never struck me like the game devs were ignoring what the community was saying. Like, my one concern for this video was that some people might use the bugs that are shown in this preview of the game as like making bad faith arguments that the game devs are losing it and that the game is going to hell because look at this glitchy version of the game that they're creating. But like again, the game is not finished yet. This version of the game will be old and will be many bug fixes later by the time it gets released in November. So I hope nobody shit talks that or takes that away from this video. But beyond that, my personal opinion, having played this, I'm super excited. I really want to play the Crucible again. It's great. It's really different and unique. Even if that was like available now, I would absolutely test it. I'm also looking forward to playing the Sengoku Dynasty. They seem like, I'm a Japan main, so of course that stuff is super appealing to me. I mean, there's new biomes that will look cool. There's brown sheep. Yeah. I don't know. On the whole, there's been some discussion in the community going on, as I mentioned, but I'm way on the positive side. I'm excited. I really want to play this, and having been at Gamescom only has made me more excited. Yeah, I don't know that there's anything else to say. Thanks again to my buddy, who again is not part of the AoE4 community. He does not play AoE4 or watch anything. He just came along with me and stood in line for what was supposed to be 30 minutes but turned out to be more like 90 minutes. And then stood next to me holding the camera on his phone steady as he could, recording everything for us in the AoE4 community. So shout out to him and thanks to him for doing that. If we had only my memory to go off, this would be much more incomplete than what we are seeing now, even though what we're seeing is already pretty incomplete because I screwed up. But yeah, I'm afraid that's all I can say. I think I'm just gonna let the rest of my Crucible run play out here, and you can watch it if you want. I'm gonna add some music or something because I don't have anything more to say. If you're interested in more AoE4 content, I probably don't have anything more to say on the... Actually, kind of do. I'm gonna try and make a video sort of gathering other people's information that they got at Gamescom to like summarize the community's knowledge of the current state of the DLC. There were lots of people in line even during just the time I was there, and surely other people have like things and tidbits to say about this that I forgot about. So on the whole, we can probably glean a lot more information, and I want to make a video kind of summarizing all of that information to try and find as much as possible from the entirety of the community, and yeah, put the current state of the development as far as we know out there, because we have nothing to do until November 4th. I'm gonna play the ladder more. I'm actually gonna also make some more videos about it. But yeah, if you're interested in that, subscribe to my channel. I'm gonna both talk about the DLC and make regular AoE4 content. But for this video, I'm out. I'm just gonna add some more music at the end of this because I have nothing more to say. And I thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.